we've all been there, haven't we? That moment you hit the first, like, real obstacle with something new.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe learning guitar or launching that side hustle,
Yeah,
or even just a complicated recipe, you know?
absolutely.
And that initial excitement just kind of fizzles. Giving up starts to sound, well, tempting.
It does. It's a really common experience.
So today we're diving into why that happens and, more importantly, how to push past it. A listener shared some material highlighting a really crucial quality for exactly that.
Exactly. And the material focuses squarely on persistence. This fundamental ability to just keep plugging away,
Yeah.
especially when it gets hard.
Right.
And while the source leans a bit towards, financial goals,
Yeah, it mentions that.
the principles themselves
Yeah.
are honestly universal. They apply to pretty much any goal you set.
So our mission for this deep dive is to really get into the nuts and bolts of persistence. We want to help you maybe spot where your own sticking points are and hopefully give you some like practical ways to build up that resilience.
Yeah, so you can stay the course without feeling totally overwhelmed by setbacks.
Okay, so let's kick things off. According to these sources, what is persistence, really, at its heart?
Well, the core definition they give is it's the sustained effort needed to turn your desire into reality, into something tangible.
Tangible, right.
And interestingly, it does specifically mention achieving the monetary equivalent of that desire. So it definitely highlights its power for financial success.
Okay.
But the real key seems to be willpower. It's presented as the engine driving persistence.
Ah, so it's not just wanting it, it's having the inner strength to keep going.
Exactly. That combination of, strong desire and the willpower muscle to act on it consistently.
Makes sense. And, it tackles that idea that persistent people, especially in business, are sometimes seen as, I don't know, cold or ruthless.
Yeah, it addresses that head on. The source suggests that perception often misunderstands the sheer intensity of that willpower.
So it's not about being uncaring.
Not necessarily. It's more about an unwavering focus on the goal. They use Henry Ford as an example.
Oh, right. Ford.
His, relentless push for the affordable car might have seemed ruthless to some,
Uh-huh.
but the text frames it as being fundamentally driven by this incredible persistence. He just wouldn't quit on his vision.
That's a great way to put it. He just kept pushing, didn't he? Despite everything.
Yeah.
And the text makes a point that this level of persistence is actually pretty rare.
It really does. It draws a clear contrast between people who, throw in the towel early
Yeah.
and the outliers, the Fords, the Carnegies, the Rockefellers, Edisons, people who just refuse to be stopped by opposition or failure.
I like the analogy it used, too. Persistence is to character what carbon is to steel.
Yeah, that's a powerful one.
It's like that essential element that gives it strength, resilience, makes it tougher.
Exactly. It implies it's not just like a nice-to-have trait. It's fundamental if you want to achieve something significant.
So building on that, success isn't usually about just one thing, is it? It's multiple principles working together.
Right. And the source positions persistence as the glue, the thing that holds all those other principles together when, things inevitably get difficult.
Without it, the best plans can just fall apart at the first hurdle.
Precisely. Like adding carbon transforms iron, building persistent habits can fundamentally change your capacity to handle setbacks.
Yeah.
Think about an area where maybe you've given up easily. What carbon could you add there?
And it talks directly to you, the listener, about this sort of initial test of persistence right near the start of the material.
Ah, yes, the action steps.
Yeah, it points out how many people will read advice or instructions, but then never actually do the first few things required.
It's true, that gap between knowing and doing.
Makes you think, how many great ideas just wither because that first persistent action never happens.
Which leads right into this really vital link between how badly you want something and your ability to persist. The source is pretty blunt. A lack of persistence is a major cause of failure. Full stop.
Wow.
But, and this is key, it says it's a weakness you can overcome.
Okay, so how?
It all comes down to the intensity of your desire.
Yeah.
How much do you really want it?
Right. It used that analogy of a small fire.
Yeah, a small fire gives off very little heat.
So weak desire equals weak results and weak persistence.
Exactly. If the why isn't strong enough, you won't find the fuel to keep going when it's tough.
And it connects actually following through, taking those initial steps directly to how genuine your desire for, say, financial success is, and developing what it calls money consciousness.
Right. Money consciousness.
Yeah.
Think of that as like a mindset actively looking for financial growth, resilient to setbacks, the opposite of just accepting scarcity.
So taking action is almost proof of desire.
In a way, yeah. It's a measure of how serious you are. Your willingness to act shows the strength of your underlying motivation.
It's like a built-in test. And then it introduces this idea that success or fortunes tend to flow towards minds that are ready for them.
Prepared minds, yeah. Like water flowing to the ocean. It's about creating that receptive mental environment.
So if you recognize you're maybe lacking in persistence, what practical things does the source suggest to actually build it up?
Well, it outlines a few key strategies. One big one is the concept of a mastermind group.
Okay, tell me more.
It's explored later in the source material, but the basic idea is surrounding yourself with supportive, like-minded people.
Accountability and encouragement.
Precisely. That group dynamic can provide a huge boost when your own internal drive wavers.
That makes a lot of sense, having that network. What else?
It also really emphasizes auto-suggestion and tapping into the subconscious mind. Again, these are detailed more later.
Yep.
But the principle is about consistently feeding your goals and positive beliefs into your subconscious, like programming it.
So it becomes more automatic, like building a habit.
Exactly. The text stresses repetition. You're essentially training your subconscious, your habit nature, as it calls it, to default to persistence, overriding that urge to quit.
So embedding the goal deep down. But it warns against something too, right? Like just doing intense bursts of effort.
Yes, absolutely. It stresses that sporadic effort isn't the same thing.
Right.
True persistence and developing that money consciousness requires consistent, steady application of these principles until they become second nature, habits. It contrasts this with poverty consciousness, which it says can develop passively, whereas this money consciousness needs deliberate, ongoing effort.
It's that steady drip, drip, drip that makes the difference over time. Okay, let's look at the flip side. What happens if we don't manage to cultivate persistence?
Well, the text doesn't mince words. It says without persistence, you're likely setting yourself up for defeat, maybe even before you really get going.
Ouch.
But conversely, if you have persistence, eventual victory becomes much more probable.
And it uses that striking image, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Waking up from a nightmare.
Yeah, that feeling of paralysis, being stuck, and needing to exert persistent effort, even tiny movements at first, just to break free and regain control over yourself.
It's a powerful metaphor for overcoming that mental inertia, pushing through even when it feels impossible.
Exactly. Even if progress seems agonizingly slow at the start, that continued effort is what breaks the stalemate.
And the source also mentions that sometimes persistence isn't deliberately cultivated, but born out of, well, necessity.
That's right. It acknowledges that for some people, just being backed into a corner by circumstances forces them to develop persistence.
And their situation demands it.
Yeah, they have to keep going, regardless of the odds.
Which really just hammers home how essential it is. There's no real substitute for that sheer will to keep moving forward. And then it brings in this kind of intriguing idea of a hidden guide. What's that about?
Yeah, the hidden guide, it's presented almost like this force that tests people.
Tests them.
Through setbacks, discouragement, failures. The idea is that those who demonstrate persistence seem to pass the test.
And they get rewarded.
In a sense, they seem to develop this kind of insurance against failure. They keep rising, keep succeeding, as if this guide is clearing the path because they prove their commitment.
Interesting. So is it suggesting, like, the universe favors the persistent, or is it just framing resilience?
The text seems to lean towards a principle at work, something that favors unwavering resolve. It implies setbacks aren't just random bad luck, but maybe challenges designed to test your mettle.
So failures aren't stop signs, they're potential turning points.
That's exactly the implication. And it highlights this dual reward. You get the goal eventually, plus you gain this incredibly valuable insight.
Which is
that every failure brings with it the seed of an equivalent advantage.
Wow, that completely reframes failure, doesn't it? It's not an end, but a potential beginning if you have the persistence to look for that seed.
Precisely. But it notes that most people just quit after a defeat. They miss that potential upside entirely.
They see the failure, not the seed.
Right. It's the few who refuse to accept defeat, who use it as fuel, who ultimately make breakthroughs. The text even talks about a silent but irresistible power that seems to come to the aid of those who keep going despite discouragement.
A power we call persistence.
Essentially, yes.
Now, it uses that great metaphor, Broadway.
Ah, yes. The graveyard of dead hopes, but also The front porch of opportunity.
Perfect description. It captures that high-stakes, high-reward feeling of big ambitions.
And it uses Broadway to illustrate that achieving that level of success, conquering your own Broadway, whatever it is absolutely tied to persistence. Talent isn't enough. You need staying power.
And the stories it shares really drive this home, like Fannie Hurst, the writer.
Incredible story. Facing rejection after rejection.
How many was it from that one magazine?
36 rejections from the Saturday Evening Post alone.
36? I mean, wow. Most people would have given up long before that.
Absolutely. But she didn't. And eventually she broke through and achieved huge success, financially and critically. It's like that unseen guide was testing her, and she passed.
And Kate Smith, too, singing for years with no pay.
Yeah, just pure passion and refusal to quit. Then, bam, Broadway calls huge success.
It makes you think about all the talented singers, as the text says, who maybe had the voice but lacked that grit, that persistence to get their break.
Exactly. These aren't just abstract ideas. These are real people whose persistence was the absolute key. Which leads nicely into the part where it breaks down the building blocks.
The 8 factors of persistence. Okay, let's unpack these. Number 1, definiteness of purpose.
Basically knowing exactly what you want, a clear target. It fuels everything else.
Makes sense. Number 2, desire.
We touched on this. That burning desire, the intense why. It makes persistence easier.
3, self-reliance.
Believing in yourself, in your ability to actually do the plan. Confidence in your own capabilities.
4, definiteness of plans.
Having a roadmap. Organized thinking. Even if the plan needs tweaking later, it encourages action.
5, accurate knowledge.
Knowing your stuff. Making sure your plans aren't just guesswork. Facts build confidence, strengthen resolve.
6, cooperation.
That mastermind idea again. Getting support, collaborating, makes the journey less lonely and more sustainable.
7, willpower.
The ability to consciously focus your thoughts on your plan, on achieving your purpose, builds mental muscle.
And finally, number 8, habit.
Persistence itself becomes a habit through practice. Like any habit, it gets stronger the more you do it. The text even mentions overcoming fear by repeatedly acting courageously.
It's a really useful breakdown, shows it's not just one thing, but a mix. And then, the flip side, the 16 symptoms of lack of persistence.
Yeah, this is where we get brutally honest with ourselves, maybe.
Yeah.
These are the real enemies, the things that hold people back.
Yeah, let's stick through them quickly. 1, not really knowing or defining what you want. Foggy goals.
2, procrastination. Always putting it off and usually having excuses ready.
Oh yeah, the alibis. Not enough time. Waiting for the perfect moment.
Exactly. 3, just not bothering to learn what you need to know for your goal.
4, indecision. Can't make up your mind. Passing the buck. 5, relying on those alibis instead of making actual plans.
6, self-satisfaction. Complacency. The text says this one's really tough to beat.
7, indifference. Just giving in too easily, compromising instead of fighting for it.
8, blaming others when things go wrong. 9, weak desire the why isn't strong enough.
10, quitting at the first sign of trouble, often linked to those underlying fears the source mentions elsewhere.
Right. 11, no organized plans, nothing written down. 12, letting good ideas or opportunities slip by without acting.
13, wishing instead of willing. Passive hope versus active effort.
14, compromising with poverty instead of aiming high. Lack of ambition.
15, looking for shortcuts, trying to get something for nothing. Gambling, maybe cutting corners.
And the last one, 16, fear of criticism.
And the text really singles that one out, doesn't it? It says it's often subconscious.
Yeah, it argues this fear stops so many people before they even start. Worrying, what will people think? What if they laugh? It's a powerful, often hidden barrier.
It gives those examples like staying in bad situations, not pursuing education, letting relatives hold you back, all because you're afraid of judgment.
It's a really important one to examine in yourself. Are your hesitations based on real risks or just that fear of what someone might say, that anecdote about Carnegie's suggestion?
Yeah, the 20-year project.
The immediate internal reaction was fear of criticism. It shows how fast that fear can kill a big idea right at the start. So many ideas are still born due to this fear.
Definitely something to watch out for. Okay, so moving on. The text also addresses that idea of breaks. Good luck, favorable circumstances.
Right. It acknowledges, yeah, sometimes luck plays a part, but it strongly argues you can't just wait for it.
You have to make your own breaks.
Essentially, yes. Through persistence. Being ready when an opportunity appears, and more importantly, creating those opportunities through consistent effort.
And those stories again, W.C. Fields, Marie Dressler, Eddie Cantor.
Fantastic examples. All faced massive setbacks, money gone, getting older, industry changes.
But they came back Stronger even.
Because they persisted.
Yeah.
They didn't wait for luck. They made luck happen through sheer refusal to quit.
It really shows that persistence can often make up for other things you might lack. The most reliable break is the one you create yourself.
Exactly. Start with purpose, apply persistence.
Okay, so we've looked at what it is, why it matters, the pitfalls. Let's get practical again. The 4 simple steps to developing persistence.
Right. These are presented as really actionable. Simple, maybe, but powerful if applied consistently.
Let's hear them.
Okay. Step 1. A definite purpose, backed by that burning desire. Know what you want and want it badly.
Got it. Step 2.
A definite plan, expressed in continuous action. Have a roadmap and keep moving.
Okay. Step 3.
A mind closed to negative influences, especially from, discouraging people or your own doubts. Protect your focus.
And step 4.
A friendly alliance. That mastermind idea, again, surround yourself with people who encourage and support you.
So purpose, plan, protected mind, positive alliance.
You got it. And the text emphasizes you don't need to be a genius or have fancy degrees to do this. It's about consistent application.
And it ties these steps back to the whole philosophy of the source material.
Yes, it says mastering these 4 steps is the goal of the broader philosophy. It's how you take control of your financial destiny, gain independence, attract success, make those breaks happen, and overcome negativity.
It's a very empowering framework. Simple, but profound. Now, the text then brings in a perhaps surprising example. Wallis Simpson and King Edward VIII.
Yeah, seems a bit out of the left field at first.
How does that connect to persistence?
It uses their story to show persistence isn't just for business or money. It applies just as much to love, to personal fulfillment. Wallis Simpson's determined search for love, despite past disappointments, is framed as persistence.
And Edward giving up the throne?
Seen as an act of immense courage, driven by his deep desire and commitment to her, despite enormous pressure.
So regardless of what people think of the history.
Exactly. The point this source makes is it shows the power of persistence in pursuing what you value most deeply in life, even against huge odds. Persistence in the personal realm.
That definitely broadens the scope. Okay, and then it gets a bit more philosophical and asks if persistence unlocks something deeper.
Right. It floats this intriguing question. Does intense, unwavering persistence tap into something more? Spiritual, mental, chemical forces. Maybe even supernatural.
Whoa.
He uses examples like Muhammad, Edison, Ford, people who achieved seemingly impossible things from humble beginnings, with persistence as the obvious common denominator.
And the author knew Edison and Ford personally.
Yes, and concluded that persistence was their defining quality above all else. It connects this power to historical figures, prophets, philosophers, religious leaders, suggesting this dedication is a recurring theme in major impacts.
The Muhammad example is detailed quite a bit.
Yes, highlighting his rise from facing ridicule and banishment to becoming this incredibly influential leader founding a major religion. The text specifically notes he performed no miracles,
Right.
relying instead on the power of words, the efficacy of prayer, and man's kinship with God, all driven by extraordinary persistence against all odds. It really makes you pause and consider the potential unlocked by that level of unwavering belief and effort.
It certainly makes you wonder about the connection between that deep commitment and achieving huge things. And the text wraps up with a really powerful final statement about faith.
Yes, the big takeaway. Persistence creates faith.
Persistence creates faith.
And it argues that faith is the only known antidote for failure, the foundation for all achievement. It even suggests that faith, born from that persistent striving, allows access to infinite intelligence.
A very profound connection, linking relentless action to accessing some greater potential.
Is a powerful closing thought.
Okay, so let's quickly recap this deep dive. We've seen persistence defined as that sustained effort, fueled by willpower and strong desire, turning goals into reality.
A rare but vital quality, built on clear purpose, desire, self-reliance, plans, knowledge, cooperation, willpower, and habit.
And we looked at those 16 symptoms of lacking it, especially that sneaky fear of criticism.
Right. Plus the idea of making your own breakthrough effort, not just waiting for luck, highlighted by those comeback stories.
And those 4 actionable steps: definite purpose, definite plan, protected mind, and a friendly alliance.
And we even explored how it applies to personal life, like the Wallis Simpson example, and that more philosophical question about persistence maybe unlocking deeper forces.
So for you listening, maybe take a moment later to think about those 8 factors and 16 symptoms. Where do you see yourself? Any areas that resonate?
Yeah, some honest self-reflection. And maybe, as a next step, Revisit the source material, especially those early parts about goals and first actions, but look at them through this lens of persistent application.
Definitely. And we'll leave you with this final thought to chew on. What could you really achieve if you brought unwavering persistence to your biggest goals, your most important desires? Maybe, just maybe, the only thing truly limiting you is your willingness to keep going when things get tough.